Hey there, welcome back to Farmcraft. I'm John. This is my boom lift. I've done a lot of work on this boom lift. I've got playlists on it if you're interested. I had this thing all fixed up and running without problems, but I've developed a new problem recently and I need this lift for two big projects that are coming up. Well, I noticed that. I don't know if you can see the difference in color there. That's because this has gotten rather oily. So I started looking to see where the oil was coming from. The boom was spun the other way because I discovered that oil is dripping out right there. And you can actually see it's been dripping onto the concrete here because it's been sitting here a couple days. And that whole area there is quite oily. Quite a lot. So where's that coming from? Well, I start looking up here, and that's pretty oily too, back in there. So I think it's coming from in there, of course. I also noticed that the hydraulic oil sight glass is basically right at the bottom. So I've lost a fair amount of oil here. So I got to get this cleaned out and figure out where that oil is coming from. So first step, I'm going to power wash this thing. Let's start out with some degreaser, and not just a little, a lot. It's quite a mess in here, and it's going to take probably a couple power washings at least. Now everybody always asks, I'm using Zepp Purple Power because I bought a big 5-gallon jug of it. It works. It's not, I don't know. I've never come across a degreaser that I just felt was awesome. I've used Super Clean and various other degreasers, and they all work. They never work as well as I want them to. I want to be able to spray this on, come back with a garden hose and just wash it off and have it be perfect. Yeah, that's a little unrealistic. Did a pretty good job. All right, so we got it pretty clean. Clean in here and pretty clean up in here. There's rust, but all the oil's gone. So I'm just gonna let this dry now, and then we'll come back and see if we can't pinpoint which hose is the culprit. All right, I probably should have filmed it before I wiped it off, but there was some oil that had collected right here, which made me think this line here, but I actually don't think that's where it's coming from. I wiped it off really good, so if it accumulates there, I'm gonna know. Let me show you what I've done. So this is the main boom cylinder. We're standing right under this guy, and I've noticed oil. This may be the source of my leak. So what I've done, I wrapped a pig mat around that. I cleaned off all the oil because I need to now narrow down where it is. I suspect it's going to be this because I can see oil right there. But, let me see if I can get down in here. There was also oil back in that corner. So what I think happened is it dripped off the cylinder into that corner and then came over to this hose. But at this point, if this hose is leaking, it's going to accumulate around the hose. If it's coming from the cylinder above, that's all going to be caught by the pig mats. So I'll let this sit a little while longer, and then we should have an answer as to where that oil is coming from. Yeah, you can see there's quite a lot of oil and stuff sticking to the rod there, so that's probably our culprit. Okay, it's been sitting here for a while. I don't see anything on that pig mat, and there's definitely nothing around this hose. I've reached down there and confirmed. So let's go up and look at our cylinder, and yeah, we've got oil pulling there. That's a lot of oil. So that's the problem. JLG still has rebuild kits for this. I think it's like 40 bucks plus shipping, so I'll get one of those on order. So it's been 2 weeks and I've got the seal kit in hand and we're ready to get to work on this thing. I've got it backed up underneath my shop overhang, so at least it's in the shade. Yeah, I'm not sure how I get that out of there exactly. Looks like we've got a cotter pin in that side. So something you have to think about when working on a boom lift and other equipment like this is a lot of these cylinders have holding valves. And what that is, I'll show you the main lift cylinder holding valve. It's that square block right there. That basically amounts to a check valve. It won't let fluid flow unless the controls send pressure to one of those hoses. So it basically ensures that the cylinder's not going to move unless you're commanding it to move. So if one of the hoses going to it breaks or anything like that, it's still not going to move because that check valve is going to be closed. Beyond the check valve, everything is hard line. And you know, these don't burst and let all their fluid out like a rubber line can do. Obviously, you want to make sure these are in good condition and not rusting on your machine. So the issue with that is that check valve, when you're working on it, can be a hazard because the cylinder will not release the pressure just by cracking the hydraulic lines. So if you have a holding valve on there and you go trying to take the holding valve off, you may find that it's got full hydraulic pressure behind it and it'll come off there like a bullet. So you got to be careful about that. Fortunately, this cylinder, which is the master cylinder of the platform leveling system, does not have a holding valve. You can see there's no block or anything. So how this works, that cylinder is actually a pump. It is pumped when the main hydraulic cylinder raises and lowers the boom. That cylinder gets pumped. It's forced up and down by the strength of the main cylinder. And what it's doing is it's sending or taking fluid from, there's another cylinder out there that's responsible for tilting the basket and keeping it level. So as this boom is going up, the basket needs to tilt down proportionally to keep the platform level. And when the boom's coming down, the basket needs to tilt up to maintain that level on the platform. And it happens automatically, and this is how it happens, because that is a pump that is exactly actuated by the movement of the boom, if that makes any sense. So that's the master cylinder. Out there is the slave cylinder. Incidentally, that cylinder out there does have holding valves on it, because if those lines were to break, it would drop the basket. And when you have people in the basket, that's a hazard. But if the lines going to this are to break, all that would happen is, I mean, obviously you'd lose a lot of fluid, but the automatic leveling system would stop working when you move the boom. But it wouldn't drop the basket, it would just not stay level. That means this cylinder isn't going to be a huge challenge other than getting it out of there. It is possible I could change it and just leave the barrel in place, but if I can, I'll take it out. Depends on how hard it's going to be. So I'm going to prop up the boom, and I'm also going to prop up the basket so that hydraulic pressure is not holding either one. This is totally OSHA approved. The boom cylinder has its holding valves holding the boom, and the slave cylinder holds the basket, and it's got holding valves. So technically I could probably do this whole job without propping anything up, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Yep, safety third. Whew. OSHA approved. Alright, so obviously the boom can't come down, and then I've got a crowbar wedged in there so that platform cannot tilt down. I'm safe to get under there and do what I need to do. And in this case, the main lift cylinder with its holding valve is my backup, and that's That's an OSHA approved backup actually. Anyway, at this point, I'm ready to start taking that cylinder apart. I'm gonna start out with the top pin right up in there, which I think we can get from the back. First try. It's got another nut back here on the other side. Might still be tension on that thing, in which case I need to just crack the lines. And that cylinder leaks a lot. Look at all this oil. Just dripping out. Ow. Love that. Only a little bit of blood. Job well done. So I did all that reaching down there with one arm all the way down there. Couldn't even really see. I could see when I had the wrench, but when it was just my fingers, I had to have my arm tucked into this corner all the way to my shoulder. So I was just doing it by feel, and I think I dumped a bunch of oil. You guys probably saw it dumping the whole time I was working there, didn't you? Could have said something. Do the cap first, idiot. There we go. Before I take that pin out, I'm going to go ahead and loosen this gland. Might need some foot pounds for this one. Can't really get my foot on it. How about some knee pounds? Nope. There we go. So there's that pin, and here's the bottom pin. I'm happy to see it's just a cotter pin. That wouldn't be an acceptable way to pin most of the cylinders on this machine because your life depends on them. Like this is the main boom pin right there, and you can see it's bolted in with 2 bolts. Those have Loctite on them even. But this cylinder, if it fails, it doesn't kill anybody. It's just the leveling system stops working. So you can do it easier. So I'm going to take that cotter pin out of there and we're just going to drive it through. There's room for it to go through on the other side. That's tougher than you might think. How do I get that out of there? I mean, I guess I can just reach in there with a die grinder and just grind it all off. This probably looks more open than it is. I mean, I don't have a lot of room to reach through here. It's hard to even get 2 arms in. And we're trying to get all the way over here through that hole, about 2 inches behind that hole, to get a cotter pin out. I think this will not budge. Here you can see the other side of the cotter pin, the head, but with the far side ground off, this should come out now, right? It's moving. Well, it did. The end of it broke out. That's awesome. Yeah, moved it. Yeah, we're getting her now. Grief, how long is that thing? Can't fight me too much longer, can it? Nope. Whew. I won. Now I gotta get the pin out. I wonder if that'll be willing to move. So I have checked. There is room on the other side. So hopefully we can move this sucker. It's a tough place to swing, that's for sure. All right, I'm gonna try to give this thing a little coaxing with Big Nasty. And I'm not gonna go crazy with it. If it doesn't move quickly, I'm gonna stop because it'll mushroom it out and make it that much harder. Preference would be to get a nice big sludge swing at it, but there's no room to swing. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out how to swing at this thing. Let's fit. Yes, that's what I'm after. It's a good fit. All right, hopefully that's going to do the trick. Let's get a real swing at that thing. Give that a good whack and that should move. Now we give it the old tappy tap with the 20-pounder. Tappy tap with the 20-pounder. Oh, that definitely moved. It's bouncy, like it's hitting something. Never easy. Are we free? We might be free. You can see the cylinder has fallen down because the pin's driven all the way through. I think. I hope. Okay, there she is. Nice and oily. This is just a grease hose. Look at all those chickens. Nice having a cute little cylinder that I can just pick up. That's weird. So this cylinder definitely has more crud in it than I'm used to seeing in a cylinder, but I think it's because it's essentially a dead-end cylinder. It just pumps back and forth to the slave cylinder, the basket tilt cylinder. So it's not really recirculating through the system as much as a regular hydraulic cylinder would. All right, got my giant Q-tip. This is just a piece of wood with some clean pig wipes and some rubber bands. So there you go. Nice and clean, no scratches. Good looking barrel. Oh, good grief. Messed up those threads. Didn't see that set screw. But I think they'll still work. Stupid. So that's just a spacer. There's our piston. And the gland, where they always leak. Wow. Just wiping it out, the gland seal is totally disintegrating. Pretty annoyed at myself for messing up these threads, but should be salvageable. It's a 3/4 16 and I've got the die. Yeah, looking a lot better. Shit happens. Also going to re-tap this nut. That's an O-ring-like component. And then 2 backup rings and a wear band. Down in there we just have an O-ring. Got the O-ring back in. Wear band on. New O-ring-like component. Which really wants to roll over. And 2 backup rings. I think these are just flat, but they do seem to have a smoother side, so I'm going to put that side towards the the O-ring-like component. Alright, piston's rebuilt. So this one's actually an O-ring. See? Round. It's kind of interesting to me that they had 2 backup rings there, because you're only getting pressure on this from one direction. So it seems like the backup ring just needs to be here behind the O-ring. O-ring towards the pressure, backup ring behind it, but whatever. They've got 2 backup rings. Yeah, there's never going to be pressure on this side. You know, this is the gland. The piston will see pressure on both sides. So there's a wear band down inside this gland, and typically I just leave these alone because they're usually good to be reused. But since I have the kit, I have a new one, and I wanted to put the new one in there. Getting this little tiny wear band out of there is a bit of a trick. But once you get it like that, usually it's not too bad. Usually it's not too bad. Grief. Just go ahead and flip over and stay in the vise here so that I can get this wiper out. So this thing's just aluminum, and I feel like I'm squeezing it too hard as it is. I may put this over in my lathe with some soft jaws to get a good hold on it. There it comes. I think it was time to replace that. The rest of it's just getting what remains of this seal out of here and then cleaning it up. Lots of pieces. Remember that wear band that I had trouble getting out? Now I'm trying to put it back in. Wear bands are tricky. See if the old zip tie trick will work. Oh yeah. There we go. That was quite a struggle. Is there a trick to dealing with those little tiny wear bands, or is it just struggle? So the lip of the seal goes towards the pressure. So that seal needs to go down in there like that. Let's go get our installation tool. People always ask about this when I use it. These things are cheap. They're on Amazon. They're in my Amazon store. Yeah, they're definitely worth getting if you're doing any significant amount of hydraulic cylinder work. Sometimes these rod seals can be pretty tricky without them. This just bends it into a kidney bean shape so it'll fit down in there easier. And then it snaps into place. The wiper goes that way. I'm going to finish that off with my arbor press. It wants to go in crooked. Straightened it right out. Alright, 2 backup rings with an O-ring in the middle. And some backup rings are flat. Many of them have a concave side which goes towards the O-ring. In that lighting you can see there, that side is concave and that side is not. Reality is, if you put it in backwards it would still probably work, but you're supposed to put the concave side towards the O-ring. Let's put some grease on these things and then we're ready to start putting these back together. Put some of the red thread locker on this little set screw. Maybe I'll remember to look for it next time. So this is red, but this is actually 222, which is low strength. So, but I'm going to put some on there just because I don't want this gland nut to be able to back out. Click. So I got that pin the rest of the way out, and looks like it's supposed to be 1 1/4, and it is indeed mushroomed here a little bit. So I'm going to throw that in the lathe and turn that down so that that's not sticking out at all. And then I'm also going to use this cotter pin. Basically the pin was this way and I drove this out. Now I'm going to put it in this way and then put a cotter pin on the other side, like that. So the pin doesn't quite want to go in there, so I'm just going to dress that up a little bit with a die grinder. Anybody got an 1 1/4 reamer I can borrow? Hey, there we go. Of course, it's not going to go through the other one. That is not exactly an easy place to reach. You won't be able to see anything, but I'm reaching in there with a deburring tool, trying to just take a burr off the edge to see if that'll make the difference. So I'm actually able to reach in there with the right angle grinder and get the far hole, sort of, hopefully. Oh, yeah, that's pretty much trying to go through. Pin will keep that one roughly in position, and I'll try to get the bottom one in. That's going to be the tough one. Get some grease on this pin. Started. That's a beautiful thing. So now I got to get a cotter pin on the other side. I'm going to be reaching through that hole way up behind there, and I'm not going to be able to see anything, but I'll set you guys up where you can see. It's gonna hurt. Ah, man. I'm using a rag to protect my fingers because I gotta bend these tabs over, and this is a pretty thick pin. Okay. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I'm going to shove you guys in where I was working. let you have a look around. Can you see the cotter pin? It is now just a matter of getting that to line up and put that pin back. It needs to go up. With that. Went up. Now it needs to go down. Man, that's close. Looky there. Yep. Click. Click. 2 hydraulic lines, and that cylinder is done. Okay. All right, so we are ready to test this thing. Now, the first thing I want to do is get that crowbar out of there, because if you forget about that and start moving the boom around, of course, the master cylinder is going to be trying to move this cylinder out here, and you bend things, you break things. So I want to do that first, and then we'll take the support out. It's kind of a strange system because it's not just a single hydraulic cylinder on the circuit. There's 2. So when you open the control valve, the extension chamber with the master cylinder is also continuous with the extension chamber of the basket cylinder or the slave cylinder. And same with the retraction chambers. So in order to bleed it, I scratched my head for a little while, and it turns out what you want to do is do boom up and tilt down at the same time, and then vice versa, boom down and tilt up. But I'm just going to move it up and down and all over the place and hopefully get all of that air out of there. Then we're going to have a leak-free basket leveling system, hopefully. Bleeding a hydraulic system like this is easier than you might think. Unlike a brake system where you actually have to crack a bleeder open and give the air a way out, Here, there's enough volume in the cylinder that if you just cycle it back and forth, and the oil will mix with the air, and as it returns to the tank with each cycle, some of the air goes with it, and eventually all the air will come out. Because there's two cylinders here, the master and the slave cylinder, it does take a little longer for something like this, but given time, the air will all come out. So one last thing I want to do is power wash this thing again and just make sure that it is no longer leaking oil. See, this got filled up with oil again in that whole process. But I'm going to spare you all that. I'll wash it and check back with you, let you know how things look. I also decided to finally power wash off the top of the boom, which I haven't done since I bought this thing, which made for some pretty satisfying power washing footage. I need to refill this hydraulic oil. Alright guys, it's been several days and I've used the boom lift some and I've got no evidence of oil leaks anywhere. We come inside here, everything's dry, not oily. We're definitely not leaking like we were. I think we got this problem licked. No leaky. Well, there you go, guys. Boom lift is back in action, ready to go, and that's a good thing because I got two big projects coming up that are needing this guy. See large Marge there over my shoulder? I really want to get back on her as soon as possible. Don't read into that. But I'm waiting on parts. You know, parts for this are hard to get, and they're taking a long time to get. And until I get the parts, I really can't move on with anything. So that is top priority for me, and I will be getting that in video as soon as possible, but it's just going to take some time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. And then we're going to have a leak-free, let's try this again. Then we're going to have a leak-free